Strength training for cyclists. It's a topic that has been covered from pretty much every angle in blogs, interviews, podcasts, science papers, vlogs even. Yet there's one angle that I find remains particularly under-highlighted. And to me, it's possibly the most important reason for strength training as a cyclist.
Hey, ik zie mijn voetjes.
School run done. Okay, a quick update on the training last week. Last week was a solid week. I was able to get a good few sessions in that were a little bit longer than they had been so far. So happy about that. The feeling was okay. I think I had 1 or 2 days where the legs actually felt surprisingly good. And then, 2 or 3 days where they didn't feel as great. Again, it's very early in the training, so that's all normal and it comes with the territory. So quickly looking forward as well to what's in store for me this week. This week is going to be my overload week. So I train to the principle of progressive overload. I'll do a video on that a little bit later as well. Essentially, you gradually build up the volume and intensity over a particular period of time. For me, that's 3 weeks, which means that the third week in that block is always the heaviest, the overload week, as I call it. So I'll be going into that week now, which is going to be the highest in terms of volume and the highest in terms of intensity as well. And then the idea is to actually really stress the body and to then let it recover so it absorbs the stress and ideally gets better and you get faster. Well, the weather definitely aligns with indoor activities. So, strength training to me is a pretty constant in my training throughout the year. The only time when I will not be doing it is when I take a complete break of any form of sports. Essentially, I do nothing and just let the body recover. Other than that, I try to maintain some level of strength training throughout the training season. The further away from racing, the further away from peaking, the more of it I do and the intenser it is. Important to note is that I always do a full body strength training workout. So in the early stages of a training block, I will try to go to the gym about 2 or 3 times a week. It kind of depends on the busyness, work schedule, etc. And then the closer I get to peaking, the closer I get to a target event, that'll go down to probably once a week, and then the intensity and the volume will have reduced by quite a bit. So that's kind of what works for me. It's something that I have tried and tested, different variations, different rhythms and whatnot. This works for me. It's also based on what I've read online. It might not work for you, but it does for me. So that's how I approach strength training. Fresh juice in the car. Let's make our way down to the gym now, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the reasons why you should be doing strength training and why some of those reasons aren't all that important to me. I will also talk about that one reason that I think is very under-highlighted, and that is the reason why I do strength training. Right, so am I here because it makes me a better cyclist? Not really, because if that were to be my sole objective, then I would be out riding my bike. Because nothing quite makes you a better cyclist than riding your bike, go figure. So while there are quite clear reasons and benefits to strength training as a cyclist, if you train to increase muscles, increase the strength in your legs, it makes a lot of sense that that would improve your performance on the bike, right? How exactly and how that translates, I'm not sure. There's a lot of scientific research. Go and check that out if that interests you. Again, those benefits don't weigh up against the benefits of actually riding your bike. So no, that's not really why I come to the gym. It's a nice consequence, don't get me wrong, but it's not the primary driver. So is it because I like working out in the gym? I mean, I don't particularly dislike it, but I'd much rather be on the bike. So yeah, not really. So because it makes me look good, let's not kid ourselves. Again, a nice consequence, but not quite the reason why I do it, right? Although, having said that, if my wife's comments whenever she sees a Tour de France cyclist on TV or anything to go by, it probably doesn't hurt my marriage if I maintain some upper body muscle definition. Okay, and that is the gym session done. 50 minutes and not a minute more, because more than that becomes a bit difficult for me to stomach. Why did I just spend that 50 minutes? Well, because strength training has the potential to reverse aging. Okay, maybe not reverse aging, but at the very least slow it right down. So I was watching and listening to this podcast, the Roadman podcast, or Roadman Cycling podcast. It was a podcast with Joe Friel. And Joe Friel is kind of like a cycling training guru. He's written many books, Fast After 50, and I think something, The Training Bible, which is a revered book. Anyway, a guy that knows what he's talking about, right? And he was on this podcast, and the topic of the podcast was aging cyclists, essentially. You know, how do you maintain speed? How do you maintain fitness as you age, right? So I was listening to that podcast, and for me, I am 38. I turned 38 this year, and I'm ever so slightly moving towards a point in my life where I have to start being conscious of that, right? That, you know, aging is happening to me. I mean, it happens to you from the minute you were born, obviously, but the effects of it become more apparent once I've reached this time in my life. So I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about a concept called muscle atrophy. And muscle atrophy essentially is, you know, your muscles are deteriorating, you're losing your muscles, and that kind of rapidly increases as you age. And they were talking about how that is quite a risk to cyclists, because, you know, your lower body, you'll be fine, you'll be okay, you know, you're doing a lot of cycling, that's fine. But your upper body is where the real risk is, because as cyclists, you know, we're going to tend to neglect that. How do you combat that? Well, there is really no other way but lifting weights, you know, doing strength training. And so lifting the weights will make sure that you maintain some muscle mass, and that you kind of reverse or slow the aging process right down. Now, that has obvious benefits, right? But one of them is the fact that it allows us as cyclists to ride our bikes longer at the later stages in our life, and more comfortably as well. So what it will possibly also do is kind of prevent a kind of career-ending accident. You know, as you age, you start having issues with bone density. So when you crash, not if you crash, when you crash, we all know it's going to happen. It has happened in the past, it's going to happen again. Now, when you crash and you're at a certain point in your life, you might not recover from that. Now, with, you know, strength training, weightlifting, you can maintain some level of bone density, so that when you do crash, the consequences are not that severe, and they might, you know, keep you on the bike, or, you know, have you get back on the bike faster. You know, as we age, and if we are to not pay attention to, you know, our upper body, and we go out cycling, and we go out cycling for particularly, you know, stressful rides. And when I mean stressful rides, I mean stressful physically. Yeah, the legs get a bit of a pounding, but, you know, particularly for example, when we're climbing, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in our lower back, and there is some action happening in our upper body, right? So as we age, and if we completely neglect those muscles, then we will feel less and less comfortable and also less capable of maintaining that ability to go out and do these strenuous rides. So you can see there's a plethora of reasons why you really should be seriously considering strength training. And if you do, absolutely incorporate upper body strength workouts as well. They do have the possibility to reverse slash, slow the aging process right down. And I think we can agree that is generally considered a pretty good thing. Alrighty, so in wrapping up this video, I just want to remind you to go and check out the link in the description to this particular podcast that I was mentioning. Also check out that channel because they have loads of good kind of podcasts and interviews with like pro tour cyclists and what have you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, if you do, hit the like and subscribe to the channel. It does help and it kind of gives me a nudge to keep creating these videos if you like them. I will see you in the next one. As always, be safe, be good, be healthy, keep on riding. Bye.